to the debate. I'm your host Rafae Iqbal, and in today's episode we'll be talking about the budget that was presented in the National Assembly by the Finance Minister, and of course the impacts that the budget is going to have on the country's economy. And of course, in that regard, we'll also be talking about how the government aims at rebuilding investor confidence so they can further contribute to economic revival of the country. And the government's economic policy management as well, we'll also discuss that, how they plan and aim to regulate different sectors such as the IT sector, agriculture, mines and minerals, and of course the fishing department as well. So these are different sectors that the government has highlighted, and of course they want to facilitate and support these sectors so they can contribute to more export growth and can contribute to the GDP, and of course in turn contribute in tax revenue generation as well. These were the different aspects the Finance Minister highlighted in his press briefing as well, and he talked about reforms, the much needed reforms in the tax sector, and of course along with that came the energy sector as well. And there was also talk about introducing new technology and new innovation into the agriculture sector, and of course how the IT sector of Pakistan has shown a record growth and record exports this year. And of course, in regard to that, the government has also focused on how it's going to facilitate that and also support startups and small and medium enterprises and micro enterprises as well. To talk about the different aspects, we have been joined in the studios by geopolitical analyst Raja Faisal. Along with that, we have been joined by Komal Kenneth Shakeel, who's a senior economist at Reenergia. Along with that, on Skype, we have been joined by Dr. Niaz Murtaza, who is a political analyst, and Dr. Manzoor, Ahmad Former Ambassador to the World Trade Organization. Thank you all for your time and being part of the conversation. I'll start my conversation from Dr. Manzoor and ask him how, since we're talking about rebuilding investor confidence in the country, how crucial of a role do you think the SIFC is playing in that regard?
Well, SIFC gives some confidence to the potential investors because they think normally somehow decision-making process had broken down and there were long delays. And with SIFC, there's a feeling that they can cut the red tape. And so there's more confidence, and I see a step forward.
Dr. Niaz Murtaza, what's your views?
Well, SIFC is a council, a committee to facilitate things, but then what we also need is an overall economic vision that can be pushed forward. So that is the first thing that needs to be in place. And obviously there are different bodies within the government, within the state, outside it, to develop that vision. So it's that vision that we need to talk about first, and then obviously SIFC could play a facilitative role. So if you look at a budget, it's more than just an accounting exercise, just balancing your books. Every year's budget should serve the purpose of taking along the long-term vision that the government has in terms of ensuring economic development in the country. And that's what we need to look at. In order to have economic development and investors' confidence, we need several things. First of all, political stability. Then the second thing is, macroeconomic stability. And that's what we have been, achieving over the last, a year or so. So even before, we move on to the next IMF, program, we've already had a standby agreement of 9 months, which has helped, bring about some degree of macroeconomic stability in the sense that, the rupee is stable, inflation has started coming down, the current account deficit has reduced. So all that, lays the foundation now for the next step, which is to, bring about economic development and growth. That's what, I think the government needs to do a bit more. The budget will probably balance the books based on certain assumptions, but furthermore, beyond that, which sectors is the government talking about? in terms of, giving incentives to, in terms of creating jobs within Pakistan, in terms of, increasing exports to the rest of the country. That is the kind of, messages that a budget should look at. So there, I mean, yes, there are a few things that you yourself had mentioned at the beginning in terms of, IT sector and some changes in agriculture. But then I think there is also still much more need to go beyond that and provide a more compelling economic development vision for the country.
Of course, in that regards, Komal, what's your view of how we know that the standby arrangement, it stabilized the country's economy, the Pakistan Stock Exchange, it's at an all-time high, the rupee is stabilized, and the monetary policy rate was also stable at a fixed percent, and now it's been cut by 1.5%. In regards to that, how crucial do you think, and what policies does the government need to make so to take the full benefit of the extended fund facility that it seeks to aim after, with the budget, it sets to set the stage for that extended fund facility?
Thank you, Rafae. I would really, I think the points that Dr. Niaz raised are very, they're all correct, and I would like to reinforce that there are several things that are creating this positive I mean, I think overall, let me just start with the statement that definitely the investor confidence has improved, and there are proxies through which we can look at it. I'd like to, touch upon the stock exchange and the capital markets basically. And yeah, it has been a record high. There was a slight correction just before the budget, and then you can see that it has in the past day, skyrocketed, and we are looking at more growth actually. It's predicted, or analysts predict that it could actually reach the 80,000 basis points mark, and that is going to also be unprecedented in Pakistani stock market history. And there are shortcomings of the market in Pakistan. We know that there are some distortions. There is market management. There are just 500 something companies, so it's a very small market, and it's very easy to manipulate also. But nonetheless, the positive aspect of this, and which is a true fact, and usually in other countries, stock markets do reflect the real economy. In Pakistan, they actually reflect the real sentiments and the emotions of people around who are investing. So if it's a great proxy for investor sentiment, because I feel like investor confidence is more about perception rather than experience, because experience is the results of experiencing the economy are a bit lagged, but the emotions and the ideas that are a reaction to the news and a reaction to these improvements in macroeconomic indicators are very quickly reflected in the Pakistani stock market. So that's a very great proxy for measuring perceptions. So on that end, I feel like this is a great. There's definitely been a boost in the confidence. Answering the question on what the policy should be and how the longer term vision should be, I must say that now is the time to create a very balanced and focusing not just on revenues but also on expenditure. I'll just like to give some figures for clarity and for a little bit more to expand on this idea. So for example, if you look at the IMF Fiscal Monitor, Pakistan's expenditure is 19.9% of GDP. The regional average is some 26-27%. So Pakistan's expenditure is not extremely high. We have been talking about, Pakistan needs to now focus towards curtailing expenditures, blah, blah, blah. But it is very important to also look at why this is not just it's just a part of the problem. It's not the whole problem. If you look at the revenue side, Pakistan's revenue is 12.1 something percent of the GDP, right. But the regional average is much higher. It's 30 something. So this is the problem we are facing. We are just looking at revenue, and I really commend this no sacred cow approach, and I must say that this is the step towards the right direction. But is this being reflected in the budget? We can't say so right now because we're still waiting for the provincial budgets to come in. But let's look at the Punjab strategic framework, and I'll talk about sectoral inequities later on. But just to shorten up this or summarize this, we have to look at what is the contribution by the provinces. So we need to be looking at just not curtailing expenditures, but also making sure that the revenue and expenditure balance is in check.
Right, Raja Faisal, I'll also like your input on when we talk about investor confidence. Obviously, transparency in expenditures, it adds a lot to it. How much do you think crucial it is at the moment, and how could it be made better?
Yeah, Rafae, when we talk about economy itself of any country, of course, confidence and trust building is the key to success. And when we talk about, of course, Pakistan right now, especially after 2 years of political turmoil we've been seeing in Pakistan, and Dr. Niaz earlier highlighted, and I remember with Dr. Niaz we have been doing lots of programs every week, and we've been talking about only one thing, and that was political stability. Somehow political stability and economic stability, they are you know, always walk in parallels. If one is not well, then the other one goes down too. So in this context, I must say that the political instability, of course, it is crucial. It needs to be fixed. There are certain avenues still we need to look after, especially earlier as Komal was highlighting about the efforts provincial government can make to, of course, you know, further sort of make better the economy, make it better. That is crucial too. In current circumstances, we know that 3 of the governments, they are of the ruling alliance, but the 4th government, the KPK government, it is of the opposition. But when it comes to, you know, state itself, when it comes to, you know, Pakistan itself, all of the governments, they should you know, sit together and work on a framework and draw a framework and work through that, so that this economic instability can go away, because this is the state and this is the country's you know, prime sort of agenda right now, and that needs to be fixed. To me, I think the current budget is sort of you know, an indicator that we have made progress and we are heading towards the right direction. Yes, there are tough decisions which are being made by the current government, but we shouldn't be forgetting that the extraordinary measures which are being taken, they are just because of extraordinary conditions we've been facing in Pakistan since almost 2 years. So we have to fix it. We have to fix it, and we as a nation you know, have to fix it. So that is why we are seeing that the problems, they are there, still there, but one by one they are being you know, looked after, and I believe the confidence is there. Why I say this? When I hear my finance minister saying that you know, Pakistan is ready to ask for a fresh sort of you know, program with IMF, this itself is an indicator that Pakistan is confident. That is why Pakistan wants to further cement that confidence, and that will be, I mean, if Pakistan goes for 6 billion to 8 billion fresh program from IMF, that too is going to cement the Pakistan's progress in terms of economy itself. So to me, there is growth ahead. And there, as earlier mentioned, that you know, Pakistan has the bumper crops. Pakistan, you know, is doing well in terms of SIFC as well, because Pakistan is getting tech transferred to Pakistan in terms of agriculture and then mining as well. In this context, agriculture and mining, they will be playing a very good role. When it comes to IT sector, I know there are certain hurdles still out there for the IT sector. They can be further improved, and I'm pretty much sure that government and the policy makers would be looking into this aspect as well, because if a country like India can progress in IT sector and can actually you know, gain more than $100 billion worth of IT exports every year, why not Pakistan? Pakistan is sitting at what? Around $3 billion, whereas the surveyors, they always say that Pakistan has the potential to cross $50 billion. If that is so, then we should be, I mean, not eyeing upon 50 straight away, but let's eye upon at least 20, at least $15 billion a year, or at least $10 billion a year, you know. So this is the way forward, and I think we have sort of whatever it takes to come back to the track.
Right, as they say, you aim for the moon and land on the stars. And since we're talking about tough decisions and the SIFC, Dr. Manzoor Ahmed, since the SIFC is aimed at facilitating foreign direct investment into the country, and the government has also talked about supporting and facilitating the local startups and the small and medium enterprises, do you think the SIFC could also play a role in reducing the bureaucratic hurdles for the local startups and local entrepreneurs as well?
Yes, they can do that, but I think the problem, there's a structure problem. I mean, you see, small and medium enterprises normally buy their raw materials, etc., from the local market. And our tariffs were so high, our import taxes, etc., that only the very big ones who can make use of certain SROs, or maybe they have these export facilitation schemes, so they can buy those things and they can export and they can get the refunds. But that's not possible for our SMEs. So we'll have to make a big change. I mean, like most other countries, we'll have to open up our economy. Although the finance minister, he did say that, he was going to, he started, I think, with saying that what Nawaz Sharif started in 1990, opening up economy, and we'll be going that way. But then I look at the budget and I see that lots of new duties and tariffs, and they talk about import substitution and for example, I could count a few. They put some new duties on iron and steel, which is the raw material for our engineering industry, for our SMEs and everybody. Then they put this paper, for example, is very highly taxed already. Is considered electric product. They put more duty, and our printing industry is already crying that there's no business in Pakistan. People go to Dubai or Singapore to get there. So that's another. Then I think the third I saw that was there was some incentives given for electric vehicles in that policy given by the previous government, and those incentives have been unfortunately withdrawn. I mean, we need to promote electric vehicles because they are far more economical. At one time, I can see when the policy was announced, those vehicles were very expensive. Now they have come down very substantially. They are much better for our, reducing pollution in major cities like Lahore, etc. And their cost of running is 1/4 compared to those internal combustion engines. So I see various negative steps being taken, although the finance minister says that they are opening up the economy, but actually on ground is something else.
Comment as the government has also talked about increasing the tax net, but they've also talked about facilitating this small and medium enterprises, the entrepreneurs, the startup industry, and of course the manufacturing sector as well. But they're going to have challenges balancing between the two. Your comments?
Me? Okay. I mean, they say that, but at the same time, if I'm not mistaken, I saw that they put some new sales tax on import of laptops, etc. They increased the duties on these mobile phones. And I mean, what I want to say is that they make all those announcements, but then you actually look at ground, then maybe it's bureaucratic or whatever, some other policies are being implemented. So while we have, I know the government has, we have a big potential in increasing our export of, ICT products and software and all those other outsourcing things. And already, I think in just last year, there was a slight change in the policies, and I think we moved from 1.25 billion to 2.8 billion or something like that. So we can. It's a really because where is India? It's 200 billion. If we even get 10% of that, that's 20 billion already. So the government needs to do a lot more, and I think they have the emphasis. They are trying to do everything in that, but it's going to take time. But let's hope,
Right, Dr. Niaz, Murtaza, your comments on how crucial of a role the SMEs can play in such a situation that Pakistan is facing at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about SMEs are that, they create more jobs than, say, large scale manufacturing and those big, industries. But then, in Pakistan as well as in many other places, they also face a lot of, constraints. So, for example, their access to credit is very limited. Their knowledge base, their technological capacity is very limited. Their informational access is limited. So we actually need, a full-scale strategy on how to help, SMEs graduate to the next level, and that will have to be a very comprehensive kind of strategy, which looks at, arranging credit for them, enhancing their managerial capacity, enhancing their technical capacity, their informational access, their linkages. We want them to, start exporting. So then, we need to give them information about the global economy, how to link up with, firms that are looking for suppliers from Pakistan. So it's got to be a whole kind of, comprehensive kind of strategy. It can't be just bits and pieces. So I think that's what the focus needs to be, to develop, an SME strategy. Now, of course, the government has tried that. We have SAMIDA, which is, the Small and Medium Enterprise Development Authority. Then we also have an SME bank. But over the years, their productivity and output has gone down quite a bit. So there is, a need to revitalize them. The SME bank, there is news that it might be, liquidated or privatized. Samida also has restricted, capacities these days. So there needs to be, a very comprehensive look at all of these things, and to look at, how we can, further investment into them and increase their capacity. It's those kind of strategies that need to come in, and those would have to come from, other units beyond SIFC, which is a facilitative, unit. So, your Board of Investment, your Ministry of Industries, your Ministry of Commerce, all of them have to come together and see how they can help SMEs.
Yeah, Komal, I would like to come towards you, Rafae, with your permission.
Please do.
Of course, when it comes to government's plans, government's plan is to, of course, raise further $1 billion from, the international market bonds. And of course, there are Pakistan's friendly countries as well. Pakistan is further going to, of course, attract FDIs in Pakistan, and we know that Pakistan's brotherly country, Saudi Arabia, has already pledged every year $5 billion worth of investment in Pakistan for 5 consecutive years. How do you see this kind of impact on Pakistan's economy on the longer run? How do you see that it would help Pakistan's economy to stabilize at this moment and then, of course, further gain momentum in coming years?
Thank you for this question, because I have a very interesting answer for this. So we always have to keep in mind that foreign investor is not, I mean, it's not there's no magic fix to this, right? You have to make sure that your domestic investor speaks, for itself. The domestic investor is happy. Foreign investment will just, pour in without all of these promises and pledges. So promises and pledges are good if they actually do materialize, but for that you need to make sure that there is a profit incentive. There is ROI that we have to offer based on, the conditions of the economy. So we have to first look at the investment climate. Of course, it's going to be great for Pakistan if this investment comes in, but to make sure that it is sustainable in the long run, you cannot just rely on promises. You have to, incentivize the private sector from these countries in a way that they find it profitable and good for them to come to Pakistan. For that, you have to reduce the regulatory compliances. You have to fix the institutions in a way that they actually make it easier to do business in Pakistan, and not just lip service to the fact that, we are making things easy. So I think that that's a simple answer to it. We can always go into the details. But nonetheless, I think I would like to reiterate the point that your country will attract investment by itself if your things on ground, the real economy is functioning well. And I think for that we have to start reducing the size of the state. The lesser the state is involved, we have to of course strengthen the regulatory and policing muscle of the state so that it can do that kind of role. But to be involved in business itself is basically distorting the market. It is creating unnecessary market distortions that are reducing the profit margins for players outside of the state. So I think that's the simple answer to that.
True. Dr. Manzoor, a quick question from you. Of course, when you talk about, Pakistan's economy facing sort of challenges, in them challenges, of course, we know that one way to tackle all of these challenges is to increase the volume of our economy. When we talk about increasing the volume of our economy, where do you see our country at this hour in terms of the sort of energy crisis we are facing, and then the sort of the industries they need to of course revive themselves as well, but energy crisis is one of the biggest hurdle for that as well. So where do you see us improving ourselves? Even if when we talk about overseas remittances, they are shrinking as well. Reason being, Pakistan is lacking behind when it comes to the workforce which we are sending to Middle Eastern countries. We lack skills, and the skill development is another challenge. We are still facing it, and the skill development is a challenge that needs to be tackled by Pakistan itself. These are all the factors that can contribute in increasing the volume of the economy. Where do we stand, sir?
Sure. I mean, the points you made are perfectly valid. But what I could add is my own background in international trade, and I see that many other countries, when they were facing something similar, what we are going through now, one of the things they did was they opened, despite all the problems and challenges, having no foreign exchange, etc., but they tried to open up their economy, and that brought in more investment, and that was the way they grew. For example, it was the same thing with Vietnam in '86 when they were opening up. They had no foreign exchange, nothing. But then they said, okay, why do we trade just with Bulgaria? Why not within the region? And they were not even member of WTO, so they signed up a free trade agreement with any country. Now they're free trade agreement with US, with EU, with everybody. Now what we do, what our process is in terms of trade, our only way forward is look at for GSP plus. This is so rich countries give to some very, very poor countries who are, they don't have any trading capacity. And that is the only thing we look for. We have to look beyond those GSP, etc. That's one thing in trade. And trade is first we have to do our domestic reform. We have to unilaterally open our market, and then that will impact, then that will give rise to exports. The second big thing where government is already doing is, and our finance minister is especially keen on that, is agriculture. I think that all that investment you were talking about, from Saudi Arabia, so many billions of dollars and all that coming, and quite a substantial portion of that will be going towards agriculture, because it's not only for Pakistan, but they want to ensure their own food security. They want to modernize our agriculture system by modern seeds, machinery, etc. So that's another area where there's a huge, huge scope. You just look at this year, our agriculture exports were not expected to go more than 5 billion. Actually, they've gone about 8 billion something, quite much higher. And that's another thing. And the third area that you pointed out is the skill development. I think that is extremely, extremely important, because our current education system just, it's not up to the standard. I mean, our graduates are not skilled in anything. We get, say, 30 billion a year on remittance. but mostly it's our people, with lower skilled people in Middle East, etc. Now, if you upgrade their skills to say, nursing and other things, their income would double, and that would, more benefit Pakistan. So at least these three areas immediately come to mind that where Pakistan can make a difference.
Yeah, with your permission once more, Rafae.
Please go ahead.
Dr. Niaz, when of course it comes to skill development, all of that, doesn't it take you towards the administrative side as well, where of course the political side, the political will, as well as the bureaucracy and our administration at a wider level related to education system, they need to fix themselves, because we know there are countries, even in Latin America, there are countries that are doing nothing else but, of course, generating the nursing staffs and generating the medical staffs and generating, workforce for different sectors, and their workforce is so successful throughout the world that they actually earn billions of dollars in terms of remittances from them. Can't we do that in coming future? Of course, if we have all of these plans and policies in place, then we can of course go on that route, in which rather than sending so many people abroad and earning less overseas remittances, we can actually send few and earn more.
Yeah, certainly, remittances can be one part of it, but just remember, if you want to expand your economy, the first thing to do is you have to jack up your investment GDP ratio, which is around what I think 13% now, which is abysmal. Even if you look at, forget East Asia, even our neighbors, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, their average is 30%. 30% of their GDP goes into investment, and that expands your economic base. So how do we increase investment? First of all, the source of investment, our savings are very low. Saving GDP ratio again is very low compared to our neighbors. So we have to find, tap into savings, which is, spread in formal channels like, locked in jewelry, real estate, livestock, this, that, digitalize our economy, so that even, small savers in the villages, etc., can save, and that saving can go into and channelized into the formal economy of the country. And then once the investment source is there, then the next thing is, make it easier for new businesses to be set up. So I won't say deregulate, but I would say rationalize our regulations, because there is so much red tape. If you want to start a new business, we have to do away with all that. Just have the smart regulation in place that you need for your labor rights, for your environmental issues, for your taxation, etc., and do away with all this paperwork that we need at every step. And then you can start talking about, skills development, making sure that the investment goes into the most productive industries, because our productivity is also very low compared even just to South Asia. So we have to, train our workforce, we have to introduce new technology. So it's got to be, a very, very comprehensive vision for the economy that has to be, developed, because right now we are just getting stuck into this very low quality, low end economy, where we just, produce very low quality goods, whether it's textile, whether it's this, whether it's that. So there has to be a vision to, upgrade the economy.
Right, Komal, your thoughts, because we talk about producing finished products and finished and products that can gain us more value for their quality. But when we talk about Pakistan's labor, of course, we export labor all over the world. But how crucial of a role do you think human resource development can play in providing a better quality of labor to the world?
Thank you, Rafae. So, I mean, look at our population. We are, I think, the 6th, 7th largest population in the world. So, there is no doubt about the question that our biggest asset or our biggest factor of production is labor. But nonetheless, like Dr. Niaz said, it has to be a very well thought out, balanced approach. And I'll just like to add to this. I think he hit the nail on its head when he talked about investment to GDP ratio, because that's true. I mean, that means that if you have a higher rate, then you are moving towards a capital investment. But I like to, just add to this point, overarching point, that yes, of course, once we have a well thought out policy, which is a Herculean task in itself, we also need to ensure that it is consistently followed. So, this musical chairs of political, governments be changing should not affect the implementation of a long-term strategic economic plan. So, that is obviously what I would like to add to it. But bringing the conversation back to how we manage our income and how do we bring about that, what is that policy or strategic direction we need to take. So, I think one of the things we need to do is to reduce sectoral inequities. And I'm not discounting the question on HR right now, but I'm just saying that, for example, the sectors that contribute to the GDP should be taxed in line with their contribution to the GDP. For example, agriculture, they're the largest contributor to national GDP, but they pay like around 2% or something of taxes, of overall taxes. So, this is something that we need to fix, and we also need to make sure that the provinces also contribute to that, and they are also aligned according to their contribution. Once again, the point that I raised in the beginning about Punjab's contribution to tax, for example, that they have, Punjab is the largest contributor in terms of its contribution to GDP in agriculture, but it pays about, the contribution to tax is less than 1%. In their strategic framework, it's 3.5 billion, whereas your overall revenue collection is in trillions, some 14 trillion or something. So, that's a very minuscule contribution to overall revenue. So, we have to start looking at this. We have to fix things in the macroeconomic space, and of course, when we talk about revenue mobilization and fiscal consolidation, we also need to make sure that these things are also fixed, because if the system is not fair, there is not fair redistribution of resources, then you can, just by having these policies for increasing your productivity for human resource is not going to do much for your overall growth. So, that's the point I would like to add, not to take away from it. I think the investment to GDP ratio is hitting the nail on its head.
Right. With that, we'll conclude our first segment, in which we talked about rebuilding the investors' confidence, and of course, government's economic policy management as well. I'd like to thank Dr. Niaz Murtaza, political analyst, and Dr. Manzoor, Ahmad Former Ambassador to the World Trade Organization. Thank you both for your time and valuable insights. Komal, I'd like you to stay with us for the second segment. As you being a female, I'd like your sentiments as well on the issue. But before that, I'll move towards Raja Faisal. Talking about the second segment, we'll be discussing how the United Nations has asked and requested the Taliban to ease the curbs on women education and employment. And of course, in regards to that, it's been 1,000 days now that the Taliban has restricted women's education and employment in Afghanistan. Raja Faisal, we're also seeing a surge in terrorism in Afghanistan. There's massive crackdowns against women education, which is a fundamental right. Everyone has a right to education. It's enshrined in the UN Charter as well. What do you think the policy is for the Afghan interim government? Because from what it seems like, it's moving towards radicalism.
Yeah, Rafae, obviously when we talk about Afghan Taliban, while they were in talks with the Americans in Doha, Qatar, there they pledged that they will of course allow women to study, and the women rights would be awarded to women at large in their country, which we are not seeing happening in Afghanistan till now. And I think United Nations coming up with this decision to of course give this statement, it's a very good statement. It should have been delivered much earlier, but now it's coming. Still, I think it's remarkable that it is coming, and it should be of course asked by the Taliban regime, and Americans, they should ensure as well, and Doha Accord and the Qatar government, they should ensure as well that because it happened and it was signed in front of them, that Taliban, they pledged it, till now they haven't done anything about it. Last year I actually came across a couple of ministers of Afghanistan, Taliban ministers. I came across them. I highlighted certain issues related to it, especially related to, you know, they not allowing their land to be used against any of the neighboring countries in terms of terrorism. Pakistan is still facing terrorism from them. And then I actually categorically asked them about the women education, and they did say to me that they are sort of you know, trying to come up with the mechanism in which they can of course you know, make sure that women are allowed to study. But the ones I met and I came across with, they were quite an educated Taliban. Maybe the rest of Taliban are the ones who have more in terms of say when it comes to, you know, on ground situation. So they are still sticking to Taliban 1.0, whereas you know, we've been expecting that this time around we might see Taliban 2.0 having different sort of you know, perspective about women education, and knowing that how important it is for a woman to be educated, because if a woman is educated, she ensures that her whole family and the next generation and the generations after that, they are educated. And you have rightly said that the this question should be asked from Komal as well, because she herself is an example sitting in front of us.
Exactly.
Of course, she is with us right now. She is highlighting the core issues which are being faced by Pakistan's economy, and she's highlighting that. I would love to see an Afghan woman doing the same one day in Afghanistan.
Right, in regards to that, Komal, of course, you're an economic expert, you're a senior economist, you've received higher education, you're working professionally. In that regards, what's your sentiment on the Afghan interim government cracking down on women's education and women's employability? Those girls also have should have the right to education and employability, or sentiments?
Rafae, it's like an undisputed thing, you know. We have to include everyone. It's about now the world has become a very different place. We cannot be excluding people and, you know, barring them from the right to development. This is Murtaza, an Indian economist who has written the book Freedom to Development, and he makes the same points. It's about a right-based development approach that the world needs to now take, because there is an inequities in the global system. So we cannot be discriminating based on gender, religion, disabilities. So this is a new world, and we have to take into account that. And of course, I would love to also see Afghan women do equally well. And it's not an easy place for women in anywhere in the world, but we have to create space. And this is how we create level playing fields, by providing opportunities and giving them the agency to develop in the way that they want to develop. So yes, of course, but I'll also give you an example from an economic point of view, because let's look at, I mean, most of the people around are in the economic fraternity at least are aware of the, you know, the microfinance model, and how, you know, Dr. Yunus from Bangladesh, you know, had this model, and then we also applied it to Pakistan, where if you give micro loans to women, they are more likely to not just return back, so they are good borrowers also, so they do not default on their loans, but also the fact that whatever income they get, they are more likely to spend it on their family's education, their family's well-being, living quality, lifestyle standards improvement, blah blah blah. But the same money, if a man is making, is more likely to invest in, like, you know, in different things, but not development at home. So it's also a behavioral thing, you know. This is something that needs to be taken into account when policymakers are making policies, and that's why it's not just a, you know, human rights issue, but it's also an economic issue. It is just more profitable to have more women in the economy, more educated, you know, improving their skill sets, so their productivity improves. And of course, we as a nation, more than 50% you know, are women, so we cannot just I'm not saying everybody everybody has to work. They should have the right to choose not to work if they don't want to. I'm not just talking about women, I'm talking about everyone across the board. But nonetheless, they should not be barred from opportunities. So whether this is Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, wherever in the world, I think this is an undisputed fact. We need to have women in the workforce and as responsible members of society and communities.
Very rightly put.
Rafae, I just wanted to, one-liner, and that is obviously related to education as well. If they are not sending their daughters to, schools, that daughter is not going to end into a medical college, and she is not going to be a doctor, and one day they will not be finding a female doctor for their wives. Why? Because the kind of society they live in, of course, they want their wives and mothers and daughters and sisters to be, of course, looked after by a female doctor, not the male doctor, because the kind of society they live in. Which actually takes me to the last point, where their women would not be getting the same health facilities as their men. So that's what the core issue is. To me, I think a system actually, crafts itself. If they are stopping that system to craft itself, of course, it would be a further disaster in coming future.
Very rightly put. That's something that the Afghan interim government should ponder upon and think about what the future will hold if these policies are continued. With that, we'll conclude today's show. Komal, Kenneth, Shakeel, senior economist from Reenergia, thank you from your time and your valuable insights. Faisal, a geopolitical analyst, thank you for joining us in the studio as well and for your insights as well. With that, we'll wrap up today's show. We discussed how the government can rebuild investor confidence in the country and better manage the economic policies and plans. And of course, in the second segment, we talked about how the United Nations has asked the Afghan interim government to reduce the curbs on women education and employability. With that, it's a goodbye for now. See you same time tomorrow. Till then, take care.